Okay, we're back. This is just plain tap water. What I've got here is a 1000 grit Shapton stone. This is kind of what you would see on the bottom of it. It's got some extra junk on it, but this is the only part that really matters. This surface here is the actual cutting part. Below there is some glass that keeps it good and rigid. So we always start with a 1000 grit, or at least I do. I'm going to spray a nice little light coating of water. I'm going to take a black Sharpie. I'm going to take it out here to my blade, and I'm going to make a little black line out here at the very tip of this iron. I'm doing that so that I can see that I'm actually working the iron in the area that really is going to be of benefit. So you don't want to waste your time when you're working on these when you're sharpening. Doesn't take that long, but why waste time? Okay, let me spritz just a little bit more on here of the water. And I'm going to set this on here, equal pressure on the center of this small wheel that's on the bottom here. And I'm just going to set the iron down nice and gently like that. Center pressure, one pull back like that. And then what I do is I look at this and I can see that there's still black at the end. So this one was actually sharpened at a higher angle. So I'm going to take it back over here to the board. I'm going to go up to 35 degrees. Go ahead and lock it in. And then snug it in. Do exactly the same thing one more time. Set it down real gently. Center pressure. One pull back. And I can tell from what's here on the stone itself, which you may or may not be able to see, there's a little bit of black that was laid on that stone. And I can look here and I can see that there's not any black any longer out there at the very edge of that. So I know that I'm up at an angle that is valid for this and it's going to work, and I'm going to be getting this thing sharp. Now I like to sharpen mine with a little bit of camber. So that means that it's going to be rounded this way just slightly in the width, and it is very slight. So I'm going to set it here, and my thumbs are back here behind this little section. Just my fingers are going to go on top of the blade here, so that way I can move back and forth together. But since I'm going to put a little camber, I'm going to do a little different, where I'm going to put the finger pressure out here close to the very tip, the right hand tip, 7 strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do the same thing to the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now halfway between that tip and the center, pressure there, 5 strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing the opposite side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then right at the very center, 3 strokes. 1, 2, 3. Now, a lot of people ask, how do you know when you're actually done at this stone and ready to move on to the next stone? Well, what I do is I feel on the back side. And I'm going to feel all the way across here, and I'm always going to go from back here, that direction. Do not go side to side, you will cut yourself. There's a little burr that will be projecting back onto this side from doing the sharpening, working there on the bevel. I can feel it all the way across there, so that indicates that I've done all I need to on this stone. Everything else that I do there is just going to be wasting time. So I'll go ahead and move the 1000 grit stone out of the way. This is an 8000 grit stone. This is a Norton stone. This one's a little bit softer in nature, so it's easier to gouge. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing, but just a little bit lighter pressure. Same number of strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is me moving over to that center position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the very middle of the 3. 1, 2, 3. So that right there will likely have gotten us to a very, very polished state. And I don't know, again, whether or not it's going to pick it up here in this kind of lighting, but it is something that is extremely polished, and it is almost shaving sharp. So it's pretty dang close. So that's all I need to do on this bevel side. That side is complete. I'm going to take this back out of the honing guide. Set this off to the side. I've got a very, very narrow little ruler here. You can see just how thin that thing is, just barely anything there. I'm going to set this here on the edge of the stone. And what this is going to do is I'm going to work the back side of the blade, but I'm not going to work it so that I get all of this polished, this whole thing. That's wasting time. I'm just going to work it so it's polishing at the very, very edge, and that is something, that's the only part that really matters when you're actually cutting. When I go to set this down, I set it down so the tip of the blade is out over the edge of that stone. I don't want to start in here because that little wire edge or that little burr can burrow down into the stone a little bit. I'll set it on here and just bring it back onto the stone like this a couple of times. It basically lays that down a little bit, and then you can work it back and forth, and sometimes you can get these to stay still really well, sometimes not so much. I'm talking about the ruler. So now that I've got it started, I'm just working it on up and down the stone, because once I get that little burr laid over, it really doesn't matter if you're moving down the length of the stone, because you're not going to make any grooves in this. You're just basically polishing that little bitty edge that's right there at the cutting point. Alright, let's see how that looks. And part of it is not how it looks, but also how it feels. So I'm feeling here, making sure there's not any burr any longer. There's not that I can feel. And I don't know if you can see it in the picture or not. I'm going to try my best to get this thing to show you the little, right there at the edge. You can see how that is polished right up there at the very edge. So both sides are done at this point, and it's just a matter of your stones. You need to take care of them, and you can see how there's the striations here, the dark striations that are in this yellow stone, and the dark striations on this white stone. That's metal particles that's being released from the steel. And so that's areas that when it's taking metal on, it's also releasing stone, so that part's going to be a little bit lower than the area that doesn't have that coloration on it. So you need to keep these things flat, which you can do with either a diamond impregnated metal plate or a piece of glass that's good and flat. Most plate glass, it may or may not be, but float glass is. You can put sandpaper on there or some other mediums that you can use to actually flatten these stones or keep them flat. If you do it almost every time that you use them, it's going to be perfect, and you're not going to spend that much of your stone by flattening. Now, to put this thing back together, the bevel side actually is away from the chip breaker, and instead of laying it down like this and sliding it forward where I'm going to hit that sharp edge on this possibly, set it down like this, slide it forward, and then rotate it like that. Then just snug it up just slightly on the screw with your fingers. Slide this forward until you get to about a 32nd of an inch from the cutting edge. Make sure this is good and even along that blade. And now I'll go ahead and grab a screwdriver, tighten it up, and that right there is completely sharpened and ready to go back into the plane, and it's going to do a wonderful job. So this is Lee Laird, and I thought I would help out some of my family and friends out there on the sharpening. Maybe this will give some insight onto what you can expect, and if I wasn't going through this step by step with you online or into the camera, I would expect maybe to take a minute or two to actually get this thing back to shaving sharp, and I'd be back into the game cutting wood. So anyways, let me know if you have any questions. Post anything out there on the blog, and thanks for watching.